Oh, there it is. Aha, we are back. We should be good. We should be good. Maybe it heard me. It heard me threatening it. Are you guys there? All right, are we back? Let me see. We're back. Yes! No, Shadow Raven, this is Blame Comcast. Blame Comcast. Yeah, something like that. That'll be their logo from now on. Every once in a while, and John can vouch for this, he saw my speed test, my download speed was huge, and my upload speed was less than 1. Like, it just... I'm supposed to have 40. I have 40 now. So, but we've noticed these weird dips, shall we say. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just terrible. I see Twisted Oma is like saying, yeah. Weird. Yeah, that's just weird. That Twisted Oma. That's just really weird. All right, good. Yeah, refresh. Good. Yep. All right. So yeah, it's entirely, when you see that in the morning where I've got a really low bit rate and like we're frozen, don't assume it's you. Okay, I mean, if you refresh and you still can't get me, don't assume it's you. This has happened more than once now, so it is, I would say, at least a once a month thing so far since moving into the new house, where it has been so bad in the morning we haven't been able to stream, and we actually did cancel a stream once because it just wasn't coming back up after like 20 minutes. So we will continue. Now. I'm going to keep my technical difficulties sticky note for, the future, just in case. Alrighty. Excellent. Blurg. All right, well, after that, how is everyone? You missed my intro. Should I go back and redo a new intro? Here, let's do a new intro. Wait. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Reaper Pro-Tips with me, your host, Anne, and technical difficulties advisor, John, and sometimes Justin, and Quindy, who's always a treat. We're restarting due to our little bit of roughness, and I just want to give John a nice clear video to put on the YouTubes. So hi, everybody. We'll ignore the last frustrating 15 minutes. Thank you. How is everyone? Well, good, Pendrake. You missed it. You missed my internet just having a little hissy fit. Sometimes my internet is 2. No, it was upload speed of less than 1 megabyte per second. Not doable. Every once in a while. And I'm cabled. Like, I'm plugged in to the router. It is right here in my room. So, yeah. Well, at least some of you guys missed the crap. That's good. What are we doing today? Should we do more verdigris? Should we block in some more metal? I think we were using, that's right. I was thinking I was gonna like add in some verdigris, finish my washes. Let's see here. We're working on our bronze. Now I have to get my brain in the game because it was like totally frustrated there for a bit and freaking out that I might have to cancel. Yeah. That's right, I was using pine. Yeah, I got it. And then russet plus brown liner. Right. All right. I may have put my brown liner in the other room. I am doing, it's actually a flannel because I'm cold. I have my Reaper shirt on, but I'm cold. So, I mean, the leather skirt I wasn't going to work on. It's not really on my list to do that right now. I want to get some of the arms. I want to get to the arms because people really like the ram heads. So let's do that. Let's get to that. Let's try to do it. We don't have a full stream because of all those technical difficulties. That's the darndest thing. But we'll put down our ancient oak, which is our color that we were using as a base. Yeah, right. It's only because you don't think about NMM and metallics enough, Shadow Raven. That's it. You've got to think about weathering more. Then you won't hear the Swedish Chef. No, it's more that I knew what I wanted to work on, but then I got discombobulated with the technical crazy. It's always a little bit of a hiccup to my organized brain when I can't make things work on time or, that sort of thing. It gets my brain like uppity. Hey, ho, but I can do one thing. I can share with you guys. I picked a villain because it was the only villain I think I own. And technically he doesn't have to be a villain, but I picked a model to replace Crimson Herald. We're going to do, Julie, this is one of yours. We're going to do Knoll Pirate tomorrow. After we make sure we finished with Crimson Herald. I think we are, though. Pretty much. So we're going to put Knoll Pirate in. Hey, thanks for the resub, Shadow Spawn. Yay! 25. 25. That's a quarter. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a quarter of 100. And 100 is a lot. And we haven't been alive or around for 100, so. Yeah, we'll do the Knoll. I decided, I love Knolls, as you all know. As you all know. Ha ha ha. And so we're going to do that. So let's get a base coat brush. I think I want to use a bigger, fatter brush. I'll use my big fat Escoda. It's more of a chisel-shaped brush. But it can hold a lot of paint and cover a lot of ground. So it is pretty good for laying down base. So you guys, some of you were saying that you wanted to see like some scratched up and battered effects on the fists. So we can do that. We'll just lay down our base. Remember we were using ancient oak. I like to use greens to undercoat bronze sometimes. I don't think when you get down to it, as long as it's a fairly dark undercoat, it doesn't necessarily impact like the color of the metallic in the end, because if you're putting on a very solid layer of metallics, you're just not going to get any of that color to read through unless you decide to leave it in the cracks, and that is totally doable. Uh-oh, I just brushed something. Ah, I see. I brushed his top crest, but that's fine. Yeah, a little bit of green on it there. Yes, I am into Knolls, I think. They were always my favorite demi-human race. So we've got this. Maybe we can do some glowing runes here. This little, I didn't notice this little embossing here. And it is kind of designy, but it could also be runes. And that could make his fists punch better or more impactfully. So maybe we'll do these as glowing runes, which would also let us, play around with that. Similar to the way we did glowing runes on the base of the half-orc, but obviously being on a model this time will be a little different. So yeah, so right now we're using ancient oak, which is a beautiful color. Almost every guy I know, even guys who don't like green, like ancient oak, because it's just a pretty neat color. I don't know yet, Pendrake. I can tell, Pendrake, that you are a planner. And in some ways, I also am very much a planner. But on these models for pro tips, I like to keep myself kind of loose. Sometimes I have a strong concept for something, and other times I'm just using a filler to determine what I'm going to, kind of keep as kind of a placement. I'm pretty sure I want purple on the crest and purple on the skirt. So since I was doing the top of the model, I just put the purple down. But I don't actually know what color of purple it's going to be. It will depend on how the project iterates, and you may wish to keep yourself fairly loose in making those decisions and just make a generalized decision as you're painting, because especially when you are going to be doing something that's going to really change in color because of weathering, which is, if you look, compare the metal over here, right here, the shiny, with how it looks now. These are reading as two very different colors, aren't they? Because of all the corrosion over here. Looking back and forth. And doing an effect like corrosion or verdigris or anything that is really going to interrupt the main color you laid down, that is going to actually change the color profile. It's not this is a fairly vibrant kind of dark bronzy gold, right? It's kind of a dark vibrant golden brown or brown gold if we just reduce it to its color. But the minute you throw that on, suddenly it becomes a kind of a greenish brown, right? And that's what it registers as, because we are heavily verdigreeing, and that verdigris takes up at least a third, if not a half, of the surface. And that changes the entire color. So if I had decided on a color up here, I might suddenly realize, like if I had decided on a bright purple, which is kind of what I base coated it in, is a fairly vibrant purple, but then I did the helmet here in all of this kind of stuff, suddenly it would all be muted, right? This is not vibrant anymore. It's really muted. And bright and muted colors tend to fight on a model when they are both main players. And so, whereas this side, the purple, a brighter purple would be fine, when you go to this side, suddenly the brighter purple doesn't look as good. And so when you use a placeholder, when you have an idea in your head of what something should look like, be ready to change it if you're going to do a heavy treatment over the top of your base color. Because that is going to shift everything on your color profile. If we did the whole model in this color, like, it would be super fast, but it wouldn't be nearly as cool. So, yeah, his big green fists going on. Looks good to get base coat on him, actually. Let's just get this part back on. Any questions about that? But yeah, things that I consider accents, and in this model, I consider the skirt and the crest to be accent colors, not main colors. Even though the skirt takes up a lot of room, I'm likely to weather it a lot because the rest of the golem is weathered. That's another thing. Don't make like one thing on your model weathered and other stuff like super brand new, unless it's logical. Like if the pants on a model are weathered, and then maybe the lower part of the jacket or the shirt is weathered, but then it's very clean and fresh up top, then that just implies that that model's been like on their knees or, like wading through something, but they're still fairly clean up on the top. Somebody suggested doing one fist fresh and one fist dinged up, as if the fist had been replaced. I wanted to talk about that concept because when you're getting into story like that, you really have to show that that's the story. And if I just made one fist battered up and one fist fresh and clean, and that was all there was to it, people would get confused. They're like, is the model not done? That's what you would get. Whereas if you were in a diorama and you had one fist really fresh and you had the little like mad scientist wizard guy down here, like kind of fiddling with it with a bunch of little table with tools laid out on it, and maybe even a magical circle or something, like then you could get away with that concept because then you are showing the story. But I get I've seen at painting competitions a lot, somebody who just does that whole paint one way and one the other and assume, that you'll get it, that this story is that this is a replaced part. But we don't get it. We won't get it. We've got nothing in the story to tell us that. We've got nothing, demonstrating that that's the case. So if you're going to do that, consider instead going diorama, because that's what diorama is for. Like when you want to do kind of a cool thing like that, but that otherwise the model doesn't necessarily explain it all by itself, that's when it's a cool diorama thing. And that would be a really easy, relatively simple diorama. You just need, a mad scientist dude kind of with his arms up, wizard, and maybe you do some crackling energy like between it. You can manage that, or you can just do a glow on the wizard's hands and a glow on this to kind of show it. You could do it all sorts of ways. But do you see what I mean, Pendrake? Like that's like the people who slather brown wash all over their model and say, oh, it's oil stains, but they haven't really like suggested that it's oil stains by putting it in the appropriate places for oil stains. And so it doesn't look like oil stains, it just looks like a brown wash they forgot to clean up. So be careful when you're suggesting a specific effect to really look at like, is the random person looking at my model going to understand what I'm saying? Or are they going to go, why didn't you finish the other arm? Because people. Yeah, but I don't like that kind of off-centered treatment. I think it's bad. I as you can see, I think it's kind of just like, it's less than optimal practice. How about that? I mean, when I'm doing these models on here, I like to have a finished product at the end that can go to Ron at the very least, or maybe even be sold to somebody. And to me, I would be very like, I wouldn't like the effect doing it that way, because I would be criticizing myself for going, well, is this story clear? No, it's really not. Do I want to do a diorama? No, definitely I don't. I don't even know if I'm going to finish this guy because he's so huge. So that's why I would go away from it. You know, obviously, if you all wish to try something like that, do it. But do keep in mind that, you know, it's cool if you're using it in a role-playing game. And so you've got that kind of rationale. You can explain it through the course of your storytelling, right? But if it's just a competition entry and that's something you're trying to convey, then, or you're just, you know, painting it because you like it, like, awesome, you know, although be ready when you show it to friends for them to ask why it's not done yet. Some of them may get it right away, to be fair. Some may not, so. But I don't really need to show different metal treatments. I've already kind of got that on the shoulders here, where you can see, like, the clean versus the dirty. And, I mean, scratches on metal, I mean, it's very... The only thing that would make it different, like, if the model's been pounding on something, is obviously you've got a cleaner and dinged up surface here. You know, but, I don't know, I just don't see... I don't see the reason to do it different ways, because I just feel like both fists would be used, and I feel like... I don't know. I guess part of it is really that, like, you can see it when it's clean. So dirtying it up is the more, like, interesting, I think, technique. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Trying to just kind of explain why I wouldn't do it that way. But when it comes down to it, it just means that I wouldn't do it that way, but you can. I just think it'd be much cooler of an effect if you did a diorama with it. Because that would be a cool diorama. Like, I think everybody likes that sort of diorama, don't they? Like the workshop type of diorama, where you can see the model kind of getting cleaned or put together or constructed or whatever. You know, I think that would be a really cool diorama for this model. And it wouldn't be too hard to do either. But yeah, any philosophy that I share on this stream is purely my own idiosyncrasies. And if you make a suggestion and I don't take it, that's just because it's my own idiosyncrasies, and I've already usually got an idea of what I would like to do or not do. Sometimes I'll ask you guys for feedback, as you know. Like, if I really don't know, that means essentially that I don't have a concept for what I'm doing. But otherwise, I usually do have at least an idea of what I would like to show or what my goal is. With this guy, it's definitely doing, like, the weathering. Because, I mean, we've all done, like, regular metallics. Those are pretty easy, right? We did that on the dwarf smiter, dark dwarf smiter. So for those of you who missed the basic shaded metallics, that's the model you want. And if you search by dark dwarf smiter, you probably can find him. So I could have painted this model all like that, just, you know, shading and highlighting it normally. But because we've already done it, and because this model is large and has enough room to do the techniques and the textures of weathering, that's why I went that way with this mini, and why I'm really not, like I don't really want to repeat myself and go back to just the shaded metallics on him. Morning, Basement. How's it going? But blood is tricky, Crows. Blood is very tricky. And then if you've got blood on him, you need something else on the base to show where the blood came from. Or you need to, like, be really specific about the blood. Like, I don't know. I don't know if blood... I think blood is one of the hardest things to do. Hardest things to do. Because getting a realistic splatter is hard. Like making it look like blood and not just like you mopped red on it. That's hard. Yeah, and that was fine, team. Like, that was fine, Margaret. I didn't mind painting the Spirit Beast mint green. I actually was fine with that. It worked out just peachy. But a lot of the time, you know, when you, and anybody who streams understands this, when you paint by committee, you often end up losing interest in the project. Like, imagine, for those of you who don't stream, imagine that you grabbed this model you really liked, and then, like, 10 of your friends all decided they would tell you how to paint it. And then you'd be like, oh, you might be like, oh, that's an interesting idea. But then you kind of lose interest down the road. Like, that can happen. Sometimes it works, like with Spirit Beast. Sometimes it leads you to a really interesting color scheme you wouldn't have tried otherwise. And other times it, like, just kind of like you lose your groove a little bit. So, yeah. Oh, you can pull the blood off with a diorama, without a diorama. You can. Although if you just did, I guess it would depend. If it's like somebody violent, like a mad scientist or an axe murderer, absolutely. Just having random blood splotches, you're going to get the idea. I will agree absolutely on that, Cruz. But for a model like this, if I see blood on it, I'm like, ooh, who did he just kill? And if I don't see some hints or clues on the base, I'm going to be a little disappointed. You would like that. You would love to have 10 people watching your stream, right? Well, you know, Anne does what Anne wants, you know, period. Essentially, okay, here, guys. Here's the secret, not so secret trick of working with temperamental artists. And I'm not as temperamental as some of them, but you will get a better result every time if you let the artist work on their own idea. Like if you let them figure it out themselves. Unless they ask you for feedback, like I have, right? I'm like, what color should we paint this? Da-da-da-da-da-da. You guys said green, orange, purple, so that's the way we're going with it, right? So yeah, when we do stuff like that, artists often are like, oh, I do it my way. But sometimes we're like, I need something to springboard off of. And that's where you guys come in really awesome, because you always have like 60 ideas, and then I can choose an awesome idea to go, oh, that sounds interesting, like the mint green Spirit Beast. Yeah, see, Julie understands. Yeah, you will always get a better result if you let the artist do what they want to do. Always. No exceptions. And that's just the nature of creativity. Like, because this is a lot of people say, oh, I'm not creative, I'm not an artist, when they're painting miniatures. But in reality, we are all creative. Like, creativity is part of the human, self. It's programmed into us. Like, it's one of our advantages. You may think you're not creative, but I bet when you have to do problem solving on something in your life, you're pretty creative at coming up with options, right? So creativity is creativity. And creativity works best when you can play around and have fun with it and do something you're excited about. Oh, I have a mold line. There's a lot of mold lines on this guy that I missed. Ron somewhat understands Shadow Spawn. I think unless Ron gets really into a given idea, he does understand that, because he gives, I believe, Bob and Julie could go, not so much, Anne, but but he does let the artist do a lot of what they just want to do. All right, God, just sorry, that mold line was really bugging me because I could see the edge of it. Now it's better. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a collaborative effort, right? It's what a lot of traditional artists don't understand about miniature painting, actually. Where is my black and brown? That is the other thing I don't understand about miniature painting. There we go. Is they don't understand the value of the collaborative effort. We were, when we were on vacation in Hawaii, there were a couple times when we were in art galleries that we were explaining what we do. And, there was a lot of but you're just using somebody else's work and painting on it. And it's that doesn't mean that it takes less skill. You guys can, traditional artists can paint 2D. only have to worry about one angle. We have to worry about all angles. But I think the collaborative effort is a large part of the attraction of it, except for, of course, you do get the extreme awesome of people who learn to sculpt and then paint their own sculpts, like Christine Van Patten. And that's like kind of the pinnacle. I think that is kind of what most artists would consider, you know, real art, quote unquote, but I don't necessarily buy into that whole narrative. Whether mini painting is a real art has been gone back and forth since I was in the hobby. It's always a loaded question. But I think trying to say anything is real art or real writing or real whatever is just loaded with peril. You just limit yourself for no reason. We all love these labels. I'm going to use black and brown because my walnut has snuck into the other room and I don't want to stop. Yeah, that's interesting. Like, I think when you set out, like, I don't know, like, part of me doesn't like that unless it's, like, intended to be done that way. Like, if Goodwill paintings are, like, you set out where you start it and then you know somebody's going to add to it, I don't like the idea of a work getting stuff added to it by somebody else down the road if it was not intended as such. Mostly because, for me, pieces that I have done are, like, a record of my development as an artist. And so to have somebody come in and alter that would be kind of sad. Morning, Daffodweir. Yeah. Well, it's a good question, right, Crows? Are you? That's always the big question, right? Is what is mini painting art? I firmly believe it is because I've done both. I've done 2D art and I've done miniature painting, and I use exactly the same thought process and creativity and, you know, planning process and execution. It feels the same in my creative brain. There's no difference. The miniature is just my canvas, and so it is a work of art when I am done. It is every bit a piece of art as, you know, any 2D piece of art that I would do. And nobody would have a problem calling that art, right? So that's the thing. That's the bias that we work against because our hobby has grown up from gaming. So that's kind of the transition that I try to explain to people is like, yeah, when it started, you know, a lot of people were just painting tin soldiers, but then some people got very, very good at it. And now those pieces are highly collectible and worth, you know, as much as a painting easily, right? And so I guess what it comes down to is, and you can't really draw like a line between, well, it's just my hobby though, right? Because think of all, I mean, my mom is an example. She does 2D art as a hobby. She plays around with it, but she does finish pieces and she frames them and they go on the wall and they are art. So, you know, yeah, I mean, that's another way to look at it, Basement. I just wouldn't want somebody to do do that to one of mine. Because for me, it's an important record of where I've been. Like, one of my great joys is to kind of see how I'm progressing, like how my style has changed over the years. Like what I've embraced and how I've progressed and all that. So if I set out to start a piece and design it with that in mind, that other people would add to it, that would be really cool. And that's kind of what David and I are working on. We keep like going back and forth over collaborating. And he wants to do more collaborative work with me. So it's like, I finally, last night I looked at him and I'm like, all right, but we need to define how we're going to do this. Is the point that you set it up and then I can change it however I want? And he was like, sure, but you can't put too much green on it. He hates green. Oh, see, and I wouldn't have been stunned at all, Margaret. I would have I think that actually having a table at Arts and Crafts with miniatures on it would be a great way to get our type of work out into the arts and crafts community, right? Like, a lot of people know about miniature painting now, but they haven't necessarily seen good work. And by good work, I don't even mean, me. I mean, just like a nice, like your pieces, I think are very good, Margaret. A lot of people would probably be really wowed at it. And it would just get it out there. I think that anything we can do to get our hobby, to share our hobby with more people. Because, what I find is that people who have never heard of it, like one of the lady running one of the galleries in Hawaii that we went to, one that we sat and kind of showed her our pieces and explained it to her. And she's like, I could do this with my grandkids. And I'm like, your grandkids would probably love it. Definitely. Here are some resources, And that's the thing is like every time you share your hobby and your love of it with someone, no matter how good you are, you're going to get people interested in it. And that keeps our hobby going. So it's all to the best, right? Let him build the diorama about the golem. If you collaborate, will the face be painted sooner? Stinker. Yeah, I mean, because he does the blocking in thing, but I love the fine detail and textures and crazy freehand, it is likely to be everything gets painted fast and then thrown at Anne for the finishing work. That is liable to be the way that Anne and David collaborate. Like, he already did that. He already, put a lot of work in on this model, Toad, and then he's like, you should finish it. So I'm like, so you're if you have trouble finishing something, then you're just going to throw at me, and that's going to be our collaboration? Seriously. All right, so I'm blocking in just a little bit more, and then we're going to throw some metallics on this. Then we're going to do some quick shading. Maybe instead of doing the washes, I'll show you guys how to just do it with regular layering. It's fast. I mean, the thing about the washes is it does, change the entire look of the surface, but I could also just layer on those colors, and it would be fine. I don't like it looking back at me. He would totally put eyeballs in it, and then I'd paint over them. Yeah, you should, Margaret. And make it educational. Write up a little thing about miniature painting and how it, started with tin soldiers, and that it's, look at Kirill's book, the start of his book, just the first couple pages, I think he talks about how, it started with that, and then there was gaming, and then there were competitions suddenly for the best painting gaming models, and then that has elevated itself down the road to now where people, you do very beautiful work, right? And, give some resources, give Reaper's website and the Learn to Paint Kit link, things like that, and see if you can engage people. If you don't mind, if you're not afraid to talk to people about it, if you like to share your passion with others, which I think you do. That's when the green comes out. Oh, I'm going to have to share this with David now. Oh, great. Sweet, Carrie. That's fantastic. Yes. See, that's when the green comes out. That's fantastic. What were you thinking? Whips out the green. I'm cutting this part off. I'm warning you. We're not joined at the hip yet. We're getting there, though. Bryce. Oh, Lordy. You're funny. Hey, but I'm trying to finish all my commissions by the end of the year, Bryce. I'll be opening commissions. If you really want an Anne model, we can talk. Trying to, I'm starting a lot of stuff. I'm really getting organized lately. So I'm putting in a lot of commission time in the evenings. Just a little bit every night means that I will be able to finish all those commissions. My goal is kind of by Christmas, but I fully expect with the holiday disruption in there that it'll probably be middle of January. But we'll see. Maybe I can do it. Okay, I think we're good there. Let's just get our metallic mix. Remember, we're mixing up a bronze out of a bronze, a gold, and a pearl of all things. Do you guys remember the colors we used? So ancient bronze, which is a very reddish bronze. But for this guy, I didn't want to go so red. I wanted to go with the verdigris, right? So I decided to not go quite as red. So we mixed in some new gold. And if you're looking for like a gold metal medium or something close to it, new gold is your baby. The only pigments in new gold are ones that match the actual color of the flake. So essentially there's some yellow and some ochre in here. And otherwise it's just straight up. So this can, if you want to build your own gold, brass, bronze, or whatever metallic, warm metallic, new gold is an excellent starting point to add other colors to, just so you know. And then we're also adding in a drop of pearl, and pearl is a white flake with a little bit of white pigment in it. And what that does is it means that we don't end up terribly orange here, and it mutes it out a little bit because bronze is just a little bit, it's not quite as vibrant as some of the other like copper, raw copper and brass tend to be very, very yellow or very orange pink. And bronze tends to not be quite as vibrant of a color. So that's why we're using a little bit of the white. And our ratio on this is 3 drops of bronze, because we are, after all, painting a bronze golem. 2 drops of the new gold to shift it just a little more yellow and away from the red. And then 1 drop of pearl white just to mute it out a little bit. So 1, 2, 3 of the bronze. 1, 2 of the new gold. Make sure to shake well. Obviously, we have flake in these, so it does settle out a little bit. There we go, 2 drops of that, and then 1 drop of the pearl white. Now, this does also mix. I call it this crosses the streams. So what you have here is that we are. There we go. We're using 2 different flake colors. And this is information that you guys don't technically have, but you can guess it. So if you look at the shine, the color of the shine on both of these paints, I mean, you'll see that this is kind of a yellowy flake. If you put a drop on the top and you look at it, you can see it's not a white shine, it's a yellowy shine. This guy and this guy, these 2 colors use the same flake. So when you mix these, that means they're very amenable to mixing well together. But with our pearl white, we're mixing in a totally different flake. And that is not a problem unless you set out like where it really like bites me, or used to bite me as a paint line designer, is that somebody we were contracting with might mix like 3 different colors together to get a new color, and that was the color they wanted. But the colors they mixed together were like 3 different bases. Or 3 different flakes, which when you went to make like a gallon or 5-gallon batch of that was just an immense pain in the butt, because you had to measure out like exactly all 3 different bases or you wouldn't get the right color match. So it doesn't matter when you guys are mixing. This will mix together just fine. Obviously, we've been using it all along. But yeah, when you go to make a big batch or to ask somebody to make, if you're lucky enough to know a paint line designer and they're interested in like your weird color that you made, it gets a lot more difficult to hit that color if it's a mixture of different bases or of different flakes. It essentially takes like 3 times the work at least. 3 times the labor to make such a thing. Such a horrible thing. So remember how bright and like almost like our starting color is here. Remember how different it looks? Like, it looked so different when we first put it on compared to then throwing the green wash over it. Look at the difference between these colors. This is like the difference of just applying a wash. Look how much yellower it went when we put that green wash over it, you know? And then how much more warm it went away from this orangey color. See how orangey that is? And then how this is warmed up just with the bronze wash. So just a reminder for you guys that the color, the washes and treatments that we put on this shift the color extremely. Oh, I thinned too much. Methinks I thinned too much. I did thin too much. I put a nice big fat drop of water in there, and I might have accidentally hit 2. So what do? We try to make a bigger puddle. That's the problem with metallics. If you thin too much, you kind of have to double your formula, unless your formula is easily cut in half. But in this case, I was using 3s. And I've got a clog. No! And you never want to thin, obviously when you're base coating, thinning your metallic can be fraught with peril because you won't get the coverage that you necessarily want. And the other thing is that it'll start to separate, which is always difficult to work with for metallics. Because when a metallic separates, it means that the flake has actually fallen out of solution. So when you put it on, you're going to notice it's not as shiny, and you're going to be like, what happened? So I'm going to double my formulation here and not thin it this time. Boop. But yeah, Margaret, our community here just had its own like arts and crafts like open studio thing. And I would have been sorely tempted to do it, except it was in, it was the month we went to, or it was the week we went to Hawaii, so we couldn't. Because I would love to see the look on people's faces to come in and see, walk in expecting paintings and see miniatures instead. All right. So yeah, so you see how runny that got. Now it's still, you know, with 2 coats, I could still bring this back. But if I am just putting it on a little thicker, yeah, this is just a very thin mix. We'll just have to do a couple coats. And since 2 coats is what I do normally anyway, that's not a deal breaker. But now that I'm getting this on though, you can see what a different color. And you always, and I talked about this at the start, way back at the start of everything, but let's talk about it again. You always want to start light colored, light, like as light as you can get and still have the color you want. And the reason is when you're putting multiple washes or shading colors over a surface, it's going to darken down fast. So if you want your details to still show up, paint a lighter undercoat, not a medium undercoat. Go as light as you can and still get the effect you want, roughly the color you want. Because then you're still going to see the details when you throw a couple of layers of wash onto it. You'll still be able to see everything. Whereas if I had started with a darker metallic, then it's almost impossible to put a wash or 2 over it without completely losing your details. Like, you won't be able to see really much of anything. And I'm using my Craftastic brush to apply this. Just because if any of my metallic dries in the bristles accidentally, it won't be a total deal breaker. Metallic paints are put in extremely clear bases because you need the shine to come through, right? So because you need that shine to come through, you are putting it in a very, very clear base, as transparent as you possibly can, and also a shiny base because you want that, again, that shine. You're trying not to put anything between the eye of the viewer and the flake so that you get maximum shininess. But what this means is that the bases that metallic paints are built in tend to be extremely hard. Like they're very durable once they dry, and that means they're hard to clean. You definitely will have to use a brush cleaner, maybe even like the Winsor & Newton, where it really will loosen up pretty much anything. Like brush soap, pink soap might not do it, because that base is so durable. The resins in it are usually very high acrylic or similar, so they're going to be resistant to being cleaned out of your brush hairs. Yeah, exactly. And like people love to see the tiny little details and stuff. People love to see art when they imagine that they can't do it themselves, and then you can show them your beginning models when you sucked and go, hey, can you do this? And they'll be like, oh, maybe. And then it's like, well, then you can get as good as I am. That's why it's always useful to keep an old model around to show people, hey, no, you can do this. So now we're on our second coat. As our first coat dries, I can just keep going around the edge of the gauntlet. I don't want to miss any parts though, so I gotta make sure I pay attention back here. There we go. Make sure we've got all of our gauntlet. I need to do the ram set as well. We can see the difference in colors now that we've gotten. Unfortunately, our show is a little bit shorter today because of our technical difficulties. But I will try to get as far as I can on this. So I'm going to start doing the ram head because I want to be able to come in and shade everything at once. I really love this sculpt. The rams on the fists are really neat. Really adds character to the model, those specific details. So if you ever became a sculptor, keep that in mind. Specific details add to the story of the character and make it more engaging. All right. And metallic paint often looks a little bit gloopy when you first put it on, especially if you get it thicker in some parts and thinner in others. Just try not to touch it once it starts to dry, or you will pull it up and make a real problem for yourself. Chances are, as it dries, it does fill in detail a little, but usually not as bad as it looks like it's going to do. So, especially on a model like this where all the detail is very large and chunky, you don't have to worry so much. Also remember though, you don't need an absolutely solid base coat. You need a mostly solid base coat. You're going to be putting so many layers of paint over the top of this. And because of that, any like small inconsistencies in the surface are going to be covered up by all that additional work. So don't sit there and fret too much about the perfect base coat. You want it to be solid. I'm going to leave this one and do the other one. Yeah, that's why I think if you do a table or something or a presentation at a local craft fair or something, always bring unpainted ones so that people understand. And even with the packaging, that people understand they can just go out and buy their miniature sculpture and then paint it. Although you can also point out, some people actually do learn to sculpt their own and paint them. Bob and Julie have both entered the Reaper painting contest with their own sculpts. So, and it is fairly common that a good sculptor is coming from a good painting background because it inspires you. You're like, I really wish this miniature existed and nobody has made it yet. And then you start falling down the rabbit hole like Chris Van Patten did. Werner Klock is another really good sculptor who came from the background of being a very good painter. He was a Golden Demon winning painter before he switched to sculpting. So it is, it happens. It happens. It's just a lot of work because when you reset and go into sculpting, although you have somewhat of a leg up because from years of painting, you probably have a basic idea of proportions and things like that. Nonetheless, it's a whole different skill set, and it's the thing that has kept me from doing it, is that I know how long it would take me to learn to sculpt. Yeah, Derek, you're right, Pendrake. That's another excellent one. Hello, Siege Forge Tower. Good afternoon or evening. Yeah, we're doing, we're kind of boring right now, so we're talking about miniatures as an art form. and how people kind of expect when they first see one, if they don't get it, they think that you sculpted it too. But then, you know, there are actually very good painters who go on to be sculptors, and there's probably good sculptors that also learn to paint as well. I think Bobby Jackson's gotten quite good. Yeah, but we're filling time while I am base coating the gauntlets here. This bronze golem is kind of an exercise in progression at this point. We started with this color, this bronzy color that I mixed, and then the first wash we put on it was a dark green, was pine green, and that's the effect that how dramatically that green shifts this color. You'd never think that these are the same color, but they are. That one's just got a wash on it. And then the secondary wash is a dark brown, kind of a burnt umber, and that takes that green down to this really rich color. And then we took that color and we came back in. We took our original color and introduced just a couple of highlights with it. And then we went in with the verdigris on the shoulder pad and on the front of this. So this is kind of how the finished bronze work will all look, but I'm enjoying keeping all of the stages, all of the areas in various stages, so that people can see, like, we started with this, and then it turned to this, and then it turned to that, and then it turned to the other thing. I don't get that just toys thing, Don Mall. Like, when you, when you're at, like, a certain level, it's just impressive to people, is what I've found. I mean, I'm sure that mentality is still out there, right? And unfortunately, Games Workshop, at least a while ago when I worked for them, they were perpetuating that mentality. They would just tell people, yeah, they're just toys, they're toy soldiers. And I always was bothered by that, big time. Because I felt like it was cooler than that. Like, you know, it's a creative outlet at the very least. It's, like, cool like that. Yeah, it's toys versus a hobby, right? Or in my case, a career. Because, yeah, you know you've gone off the rails when all your hobbies become careers. So yeah, I just switched over to this this ram's head glove because I wanted the other one to dry fully before I put my second coat on. Didn't want to run into that problem that I told you guys to avoid. Plus it gets both fists set, and then we can put the green wash. Maybe we'll put the green wash on one or on both, but then we'll just do the brown wash on one, and that way I can go back and finish the helmet. Because I'll still have an example of our intermediate wash. And I'm not going to worry too much about if I kind of accidentally paint over the fist on this side, because we haven't done anything to it beyond the base coat. So anything I do, any blorf I do is easily touched up. Yeah, that's probably true, Dumbo. Yeah, regionally. Because actually the French too. France, Spain, and Italy. And actually Russia. Is very much an art form. I get the feeling from talking to the guys who paint in those areas, who are from those areas. But then, yeah, in other areas of Europe and just in general, right, it's probably viewed like more as just toys. And in the US, it's been a fight to elevate it, and still is a fight to elevate it above that level, right? And that's what a lot of us, I talked to Matt DiPietro about this a lot at the last Adepticon, but he really feels strongly that miniatures at its highest form is an art form, and he wants recognition for that. Like, he wants it to be recognized as that. And I think many of us agree that, you know, like when you look at an amazing piece by somebody who is like really on their game, that put a lot of work in, and you're just wowed, and it like gets a gut reaction from you, that's the same kind of gut reaction you'd get looking at a really amazing painting that you loved. And so the challenge is how to overcome that mindset of toys and kind of replace it with the conviction that it is an art form. It's like I said, I've done both, and it's the same creative process for me. It's the same feel. I use the same brain cells for it. So I think that as certain other like crafting hobbies, quilting is a great example. Quilters have been through kind of the same kind of cycle we were, where it's just a quilt, you just put it on a bed. But now, like, quilting is definitely recognized as an art form. There are quilts in museums, in art museums, and it is presented as art. And the quilters had to fight for that. And there's still people out there that would argue that it's not art. Why is this quilt in my art museum, right? But it's that same kind of thing. You come from a hobby that you do for enjoyment or to create something useful that you use, like either putting it on your bed or playing a game with it. Because there's this weird idea that art is not useful, I think, is part of that psychology. It's so odd to me. Yeah. Well, in high roller art collections, I think you're right. Yeah, I think that we need that there's definitely going to take some work too on that, like Damal, like getting a gallery that features miniatures, that bucks the trend and features miniatures, for example, starting that ball rolling. I feel like it's not naturally going to happen unless the community really embraces the idea and takes steps to present miniatures. And I believe in Europe, like in certain places in Europe, like you pointed out, they already are. So yeah, then it's getting a wider. I mean, our hobby's come a long way in that more people know about it now. A lot more people know about it thanks to Stranger Things and some other popular media where it's been portrayed, albeit portrayed at a very basic level. So at least we're on the map now. We're on the radar. So now the goal is to say, hey, this can be really amazing, Oh yeah, I love quilts. Yeah. It's this thing where art does not have to be useless. It's, it is not, it's like this purist idea where art is purely there to be seen and admired, and it doesn't really do anything other than that. And the idea of functional art has been gaining more ground, but I feel like that's one of the things that the quilters had to fight against and that miniatures will have to fight against, because getting recognition that you can do this to a very high level, right? So I'm putting a second coat on. And that'll be a nice solid base. You can see how shiny that's coming up now. For the washes, I still need to do the ram set. You can see the difference. But you should get pretty decent coverage with Reaper Metallics with two coats. You really, because the metallic base is itself pretty fluid, you do not want to thin them if you can get away with it. When they've been sitting in your palette for a while, you definitely do want to add a little bit of water, but I would add just enough to keep it going. Yeah, right? And that's so cool. I can't wait till we're all in nursing homes playing D&D. Or computer games, World of Warcraft, if it's still around, or something similar. All of us who grew up with computer games, we're not going to give that up as we get older. In fact, I feel like as you get older, MMOs and things like that give you a social community online to game with are going to be really important. keeping older people like involved. You know, that was the challenge when my great aunt was in the nursing home, is just like keeping them involved in hobbies and like, you know, having a social circle and things like that. It gets harder when you get older sometimes, depending on who you've got still around. And I think that some of this stuff could be very cool for our older generations as we the geeks get older. We the nerds. Here we go, nice solid. Yeah, Xbox 96X, yeah. Oh, super. Yeah, my chosen art form is colored pencil. That's if I do 2D, that's where I'm at. I just showed somebody, like, I found a really, really good portrait done in colored pencil. And actually, while I wait for that to dry, I'll show you guys real quick. This gives you also an idea of good colors for dark skin. So I was looking for a kind of I like to look at 2D art to get inspiration for things like skin colors, looking at what other artists have done to create, like, you know, a good dark skin color. So I'll show you this one. There she is. Believe it or not, this is colored pencil. Do you believe it? And I was looking specifically for a warm light on one side and a cool light on the other, so I was really happy to find this. Yeah, so I love colored pencil because of what you can do. And as you get closer, you can see the texturing, see? See the pencil strokes now? You can kind of see it there. You can see that delineation. You can see the colored pencil texture. You can see the blue shadows in the daylit section, the sunlight sections, blue shadows, some reflection. All through there. You can see that black skin can absolutely go up to white with an intense light. You can very much see the pencil marks here on the hand, see? Where they've done cross-hatching. You can see the cross-hatching that they're using to build up all these forms. And then the other side is very finished, almost photographic. And you can't see the pencil over there. That's all highly finished. But again, wherever you've got a strong light or a shiny surface, you can see it going up to white. So yeah, I love colored pencil. And I love that kind of colored pencil. That's what you can do with CP. Do not ever count colored pencil out. Like miniature painting, colored pencil was an art form that did not get cred for so many years. But the pencils nowadays are so high quality, and so you can do such amazing stuff with them. High pigment, you know, various binders, wax or oil-based or whatever you're going to do. But it's really cool what you can do nowadays, guys. Yeah, that's really nice, Margaret. That sounds great. Animal encyclopedia with photos and drawings. That's really good. Yeah. Yeah, Marvel movies for sure, Dogfather. Oh, good. Yay, paint. Nice to meet you, Mr. and Mrs. Crafting. All right, so now we should be dry. So we can start with, I gotta dig out my pine green here. Where did I stuff it? Aha, I grabbed it first try. Which, considering the amount of green in my drawer, I have a ton of green and a ton of red and a ton of brown. Like, I think that if you guys, actually this might be kind of fun, all right? All right, so here's a fun exercise for you. I don't know if we're gonna have time for this wash, actually, because we're, like, headed for 11. But, oh, good. That's cool. Actually, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Crafting? If you're internet savvy, or even if you just know how to watch a YouTube video, Reaper Miniatures YouTube, I did a class for ReaperCon when we were virtual called Thinning MSP Paints, and it shows you how to use our paint. So it'll show you like how much to thin it for a good base coat and for a wash and for like other stuff like glazing and layering that I don't know if you're into yet. But it's all in that video. It's about an hour and a half video, so it's a real class. And it's free, and it's on Reaper's YouTube. And Quindy just linked it right there in the chat. See the thinning MSP paints? Yeah, exactly. And then if you don't, you can take notes and pretty much get it all. But if you want a handy tip sheet, I've got a free kind of just a breakdown of the different ratios over at my Patreon. And that's patreon.com/paintingbig. All one word, painting big. So, and then Quindy will probably get that. Yeah, there we go. So I have some free public content, like a random color scheme generator, because why not? But there's also the free handout for thinning MSP paints. So you can also get that. But that should help you in your Master Series journey. Oh, Quindy's always just my support. Hey, no problem. Like, okay, so if you didn't know, Mr. and Mrs. Crafting, I made Reaper's paint line. I worked full-time for them for 17 years, and although I was also a staff painter for a lot of that, my main job for 15 of those 17 years was creating Reaper's paint line. So I used to mix every batch by hand, every single one, test it for color and mattness and everything. I created all the colors and all the names up to 2020. So, yeah, so that's why you come here and you say you're trying the paint, and I'm like, ooh, let me help. So I hope that does help. But yeah, I'm Anne. I'm still a Reaper employee, but right now I moved to the West Coast to be with my guy, and so I am no longer heading the paint department. Now I do the stream instead. And we, it's cool. It's like I'm one of the only people in the world who can put that on their job resume. But yes, welcome. We do this stream every morning, 11:30 a.m. USA Standard Time. And we go till 1. And we have a 6 model rotation. So over the course of a week, we'll work on a different model every day, and I'll talk about different things with every model. So that also can be useful, because if you ask a question in the chat, I pretty much see everything, and I'll respond. And never be afraid, if you're new to it, to ask questions that are newbie questions, because it's always worth our time to go over that. You might be the one asking, but I can guarantee there's at least 5 more people watching this stream that are newbies and who need that question answered also. So never feel like you're derailing anything. This stream is all about free information that helps you enjoy your hobby better. That's it. Oh, you've got it in a handy little exclamation point thing now. Exclamation point thinning MSP. Wow, that's really handy. Cool. Rails, we don't need a stinking rails. Yes. Yeah, that's true. Well, I mention it all the time because it's a free resource. And when you're getting into this hobby with this paint line, it just helps so much to just go and be set up to succeed, right? That's what I want. I want you guys to be set up to succeed. So good. Hey, but you have it now, so. Is the middle NMM final, there's also verdigris going on there? No, there's going to be probably verdigris on everything at the end, although some areas won't get as much. You notice here that I've got kind of this area is still pretty clean, and then we've got more verdigris here, and that's because there's going to be heavier verdigris anywhere where water catches and stays on the surface to oxidize. So like areas like this underneath, this is going to get verdigris. But some of the top areas aren't going to get as much, or they may just get touches. I do have it. Oh yeah, I was going to tell you guys a fun exercise. Okay, so it can be very interesting as a painter to go through and look at all your paints and grab just the paints that you use all the time, right? Grab your most frequently used paints, which is what my drawer is, right? It's my paints that I tend to reach for a lot, that colors that I really like. And then kind of look at like where you are. Because like I said, my drawer is so heavy on browns and reds and greens. I have so little yellow and orange, and I have moderate blue, but I have lots of teal, but not like lots of like it's a small section, a small but powerful, small but mighty section of teal. But yeah, just kind of look at like, and see if you swing toward particular colors. Because I wasn't too surprised when I did this analysis because I love painting red and I love painting green. And yes, Bryce, yeah, David's least favorite color. He hates green. Which is ironic. I mean, he did paint The Alchemist in green, and he is, like, always telling me that. But then he's also following that up with, but I hate green. None of Reaper's shows have rails. Yeah, exactly. And you'll find that you don't paint. Like, there's always a particular color that you don't paint in as often. And so I was surprised that I didn't see more purple in my list. Because it's funny because I use it all the time, but I use it like 4 very specific colors. So it was just odd. It can be fun. It can be fun because you can identify and say, maybe I need to paint a little more blue, or maybe I need to paint something turquoise, you know? Like, it can give you ideas for kind of stepping outside of your zone and trying something different. So, highly recommended. Brown and leather, yeah. I used to have a friend who joked that everything was brown on his minis. Like, I love this color, sky brown and grass brown and stone brown. And, he was just like treating every color like everything should be brown. Yeah, well, brown is really, the very useful neutral, right? And especially like good, warm, dark browns, like these two guys are your MVPs. The rails are more like bowling bumpers. They knock us back and forth. So these two guys, 9137 and 9199, are my 2 favorite browns. They are both dark and warm and very, very neutral, and they don't fight with any color on the planet. They will go with everything. Everything. I don't care what. If it's out there, these colors will go with it. So I call them harmonizing browns, kind of. And they tend to, introducing this type of color tends to make your whole color scheme harmonize a little bit better. So of all the browns, if you are a brown fan, those are my 2 MVPs, followed by rich leather, which I use for a lot of like bases for orange or gold. And then the new oxide brown, which is coming out, which just came in the Kickstarter. This one also very, very useful if you want a reddish brown. Reddish brown would be either oxide brown or ruddy leather. These are my 2 MVP reddish browns. You can tell this one is more red, and this one, and it's a little more vibrant, more intense. It's a single pigment. Brown oxide is a single pigment. This is more of a custom mix, but it's really, really useful that way. Gonna paint all the things. Good. Yeah, week off. That's like really nice. I just had my time off. So now I'm back to work till the holidays. Then I get more time off. But yeah, all right. So cool. Well, we didn't get a lot done today, though. We got a lot of discussion done. I talked about metallics and base coating and strategies, and kind of like how much or not to thin them. We talked about undercoating in colors and why, it's very likely that it's not going to affect your end color unless you specifically leave parts of it showing through. Even though I undercoated in green, chances are it's not going to appreciably shift my color once I have all these washes and adjustments on there. But this way, if it does show through, it's at least the color that I'm aiming for to put in the weathering in the cracks. So that's why I started these guys with green. We talked a little bit about kind of planning your model and how you should be ready to change things. Even your original idea of what color to use, say up here, might change once you have all, especially if you're going to do like a heavy weathering treatment or something like that. And you want that to, if you want this helmet to look like this shoulder pad, then this bright purple might not work anymore as well as, say, a more dirty purple would. Yes, I did, Tarajan. Yes, I wanted to also say, for those of you who know about my book and the fact that I'm currently sending it out to agents, yes, I sent my first query yesterday on my new plan to send 100 query letters to 100 agents in 100 days, which is just fraught with peril, but I'm doing it anyway. I've just decided. So that's what the plan is. And yes, I did send out the first one yesterday. Yep. So fun. But yeah, it's been great to hang out with you guys this morning. I'm sorry for the rocky start. I know we had internet connectivity problems on my end. Hopefully that will not recur for a while. It seems to just hit us every once in a while, like every once a month or something. Live on the edge, exactly. Good. Yeah, definitely. Keep them crossed. Yeah, it's funny. It's like, publishing moves at a glacier's pace already, and so it takes so long for agents to get back to you. And so I was just like, you know what? I may as well just hit everybody. Just hit them all. Get it over with. Then I'll know if none of them want me, and I'll know within 6 months. And then I can just I can indie publish it. I just want it out there at this point, so. All right, cool. So that's what we covered this time. And as I mentioned, we've been working on this guy for a few weeks. So there are other Bronze Golem streams that are recorded and up on Reaper's YouTube. Whenever you see me working on a model, you can always look it up by name or by SKU number. This guy is part of the Greek Odyssey, Bones 5, so we don't have an SKU for him yet. But Bronze Golem should get you there if you want to start watching from the beginning and catch up. Oh, puppy. Yeah, that's fine. We're about to end, actually. Says we're 1 p.m. Central Time is when we end. But yes. Oh, yeah. And 2 p.m. for Crafty Creative. And I also am doing my own stream on my own channel this afternoon at 4 p.m. Central over on twitch.tv/paintingbig. We will be working on Slime Kitty. We're going to be trying to paint a clear slime kitty. That's what we're going to do. Designed by our very own Rax. And his kid, actually. All right. So thank you very much. I hope you all had a fun time and that you're inspired to run out and paint things. Paint lots of things. Thanks, everybody. And we're going to be rating Dices, so please give her a hello. And I'll see you guys again this afternoon if you come over to my stream or tomorrow morning. Thank you.